Yo, how's it going, everyone? This is Mitchellmander here, and welcome to another review of the Pokemon Journey series. We're covering episode 93 in today's review, and it's the Renji focus episode. His first focus episode after 90 plus episodes. So how was the episode, and was it worth it? Did Renji's development in this episode actually progress a little bit, and is he a more interesting character now, thanks to it? Well, before I get onto the episode review, just a few things. So first I want to say, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It would be pretty awesome if you would do that. So just a few things before we get onto the actual episode review. So we actually got some screenshots for the upcoming Pokemon Legends Arceus arc that is premiering on Amazon Prime in Japan, with episodes 1 and 2 premiering next Friday, and then episodes 3 and 4 coming out the day Legends Arceus comes out, which is the 28th. Well, it would appear that a fan favorite character is actually coming back for this special. It's none other than our boy Brock. Yes, Brock is coming back. I actually wanted to make a video about this earlier in the day, but because of work I really didn't have enough time to do that, so I just wanted to mention it here. So I'm actually really excited for this special now, because our boy Brock is back. He's also in his DP outfit too, so I find that to be pretty interesting. Also, you get to see some other interesting things in the screenshots, like the commanders from Team Galactic. And it seems like Heatron's also here, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this upcoming special episodes, as long as we can get our hands on it, that is. So the second thing I want to mention here before the episode review was this standalone episode that the Pokemon YouTube channel uploaded this week. It's titled Bidoof's Big Stand. It's actually a really nice short episode. You guys should go check it out if you haven't already. It's already got 1 million plus views, so I imagine that most of you have already checked this out. But my buddy in real life, Nick, aka Fizzle Wizard, wanted me to make a review of this episode, or the standalone episode that the Pokemon channel put out. But I didn't have enough time as I was working on the Serena video, but I want to mention it really quickly. It's really nice. Bidoof is a pretty overhated Pokemon, so it was actually really nice that the Pokemon company actually put out this animation. It's really cool. You should check it out. It's pretty wholesome, so yeah. Anyways, let's actually talk about episode 93 Pokemon Journeys. So episode 93 begins at the Sakuragi Labs. It looks like Renji got this lamp back from the repair shop, I guess. Anyways, it looks like his lamp is back, and it looks like it's his Magnemite's favorite lamp. As it appears that his Magnemite only likes retro objects. It doesn't really care for anything else, as Pikachu actually tries to shock it with some electricity, but it shuns Pikachu, which was pretty funny. There's also a brief magnetic storm that passes by that shuts out the power for a brief second, and then it comes right back on. Seems like everything's kind of back to normal, nothing to really worry about. That's when Kikuna calls in and says that something's going on in downtown Vermilion City. A bunch of Magnemite are just going crazy and just betraying their masters, just doing whatever, messing around with stuff around town, causing a lot of issues. And this eventually affects Renji's Magnemite as well, who starts to go berserk too, until he puts some tinfoil on it, which calms it down. So it appears the reason why the Magnemite are going berserk is because of that magnetic storm that occurred a few minutes earlier. And it looks like it's only happening in Vermilion City, because they actually figure out that if they go outside of the city or go to the outskirts of Vermilion City, Magnemite shouldn't be affected by the magnetic storm. So they decide to head out, go to the outskirts of the city, and it's actually kind of funny because apparently Renji is afraid of heights, so he gets on Go's Flygon and he starts freaking out, which I thought was pretty funny. Unfortunately, before they can get out of Vermilion City, a bunch of Magnemites show up and start attacking them. It looks like they're actually trying to recruit Renji's Magnemite to go along with them. So Ash stays behind to fend them off as Go and Renji take off. But a bunch of Magnemite end up catching up to them, so they end up splitting up as well, with Go actually taking Renji's lab coat and actually having Grookey hide under it and tricking the Magnemite into thinking that Grookey is Magnemite. So Renji is able to take off with his Magnemite, while Go actually tricks them, leads them away, and eventually takes out Cinderace to face off against a bunch of them. And I mean a bunch of them, even though fire is super effective against Magnemite, there's just way too many for Cinderace to deal with, but he does so anyways. Now, throughout this episode, we actually learn about Renji and Magnemite's backstory and how the two met. It's actually pretty interesting. They actually disperse it throughout this episode. So, Renji meets Magnemite at this cafe in Vermilion City. As it turns out, this Magnemite is not like any typical Magnemite, whereas the typical Magnemite will just feed off of electricity from pretty much anywhere. This one is very specific. It's very picky. It only goes for retro objects, and it seems to be obsessed with this chandelier that's in this cafe, to the point where Renji actually tries to show it to this lamp that's in this cafe, that's at the table that Renji usually sits at, but it's not interested in it. But as time goes on, it seems to actually take a liking to this lamp, but it's still obsessed with the chandelier. But unfortunately, the cafe ends up shutting down, so Magnemite ends up going with Renji. But it rejects Renji initially. It's not interested in the lamp, and it tries to get back to the cafe and the chandelier. And it ends up leaving during the winter. So Renji actually ends up going out after it, to the point where he's searching for this Magnemite, and he cares so much for this Magnemite. He searches so long that his fingers, seem to be actually getting frostbitten. Like, his fingers are literally getting frozen. But he eventually finds Magnemite. It's actually freezing. He takes it back, and the two actually form a pretty tight bond, and it eventually grows to like the lamp. It's actually pretty wholesome. But back to the main plot here. So eventually, the tinfoil on Magnemite's head actually gets knocked off, and it eventually gets hypnotized and goes berserk like the other Magnemite, and they all end up going to the sky. Professor Sakuragi actually figures out what's going on. Him and Kakuna figured out that a satellite was malfunctioning in the air above Vermilion City, in space, and it's causing the magnetic storm. It's causing all the Magnemite to go crazy. And the reason why the Magnemite are combining is they're trying to evolve. And not just your typical evolution. It's not them evolving in the Magneton or Magnezones. They're trying to become basically this ultimate form, like big, gigantic Magnemite thingy. Like, literally, when they all form, it forms like just one big eyeball. It's almost like some completely new evolution for the Magnemite line. Like, when Professor Sakuragi says it's an ultimate form of this Pokemon, he isn't kidding, because if this thing actually got unleashed into the world and actually, like, formed, I think this Pokemon would have been, like, unstoppable. It would just be too powerful. It's just a mass of electricity. And yeah, that would be a huge problem. Also, is it just me, or does this form that the Magnemite take in this episode look very similar to Dark Matter from the Kirby series? And also, it reminds me of the first homunculus from the main antagonist in the Full Metal Alchemist series. I don't know, just looking at this thing, it just reminded me of those two things. But anyways, back to the episode. So Renji came up with a pretty interesting strategy to get his Magnemite back. So as observed earlier in the episode, despite being in a berserk state, the Magnemite absorbed Pikachu's Electro Web attack. Whereas with his Magnemite, it's a picky eater. It only likes retro objects. It completely rejected Pikachu at the beginning of the episode. So he surmises that if Pikachu uses Thunderbolt on the massive Magnemite Ultimate Form thingy, he'll be able to spot out his Magnemite. And that's exactly what happens. He manages to get his Magnemite back that way. And despite being shocked at first, he manages to calm down Magnemite. Now, whether he does this by his own means, or if it's because the magnetic storm came to an end because the Kanto Space Center figured out what was going on with the satellite and fixed it, regardless, the situation has calmed down. All the Magnemite are done trying to evolve into this massive, gigantic, ultimate form Magnemite thingy. They all go back to their trainers. They all go back to the wild. Things seem to be hunky-dory. So following this, it turns out sometime later, through Renji's help, the cafe that he visited that closed down reopens. So Magnemite is able to go back to its chandelier. Probably still gonna enjoy Renji's lamp, but now it's actually got the means of going back to its favorite chandelier, as the episode draws to an end. Now, overall, I have to say I was actually pretty impressed with today's episode. It ended up being a pretty good episode. A pretty good Renji-focused episode. Now, going in the episode, I really wasn't looking forward to it. Renji's not a character that I really cared for. They haven't really done much with him throughout Journeys up to this point. So I wasn't really sure how I felt about this episode. I was kind of glad that he was finally getting some development. But I was very skeptical. But I'm glad that I was wrong. This ended up being a very enjoyable episode. I think this episode really did a good job staying true to just focusing on Renji. And even though Ash and Go were involved in the episode, and even though Kahoru was absent, I think this was for the best, because we actually got a ton of focus with Renji. We didn't have Go catching a Magnemite or another Pokemon, which sometimes gets in the way of the plot sometimes. I just like that the episode just focused mainly on Renji and his Pokemon, and then the conflict that was going on. But for me, the best aspect of today's episode was Renji and Magnemite's backstory, because my goodness, was it handled right, in my opinion. I think the direction here was great. Like, dispersing it throughout the episode was a really nice touch. Normally this would distract from the actual content that's going on in the episode, but I think that this aided the episode. It also aided Renji in his development throughout the episode. It's actually really nice. And I also just like the nice touches here and there throughout the backstory. Like, the fact of the matter is, Renji was literally going out in the cold weather searching for his Pokemon, potentially for hours, to the point where his hands were literally getting frozen. It looked like they were about to be frostbitten. And yeah, that's some pretty nice attention to detail. It shows literally what lengths he would go to save his Pokemon. He was literally risking, his actual hands. Like, his hands were getting frozen and they could have permanent damage, but he didn't care. He cared for that Pokemon so much that he was willing to risk his fingers getting frozen. So yeah, I love it. Alrighty guys, that's all I got for today's episode review. So overall, a solid episode. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So in the comment section down below, post your thoughts. Did you love this episode? Did you hate this episode? I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, post your thoughts on the upcoming Pokemon Legends Arceus arc. Are you excited for Brock reappearing in the series, or at least in these special episodes? And what about Bidoof's Big Stand? What do you think about that animation short that the Pokemon YouTube channel put out earlier this week? Post your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like I said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and have a good day or night wherever you guys are at, and peace.